What is going on, folks? Welcome into episode 2 of the Bubba Rose Show. We really appreciate you tuning in. If you missed last week's debut of the program, go back and check it out as we had an excellent 35-minute conversation with Brad Long, who played the role of Buddy Walker in the classic sports movie Hoosiers that was released back in 1986. This week, we're sticking with somewhat of a movie theme as our guest's remarkable life story inspired the 2002 Disney movie The Rookie. However, as awesome as that part of his story was and is, there is so much more to this gentleman's inspiring story, some of which I wasn't even aware of until preparing for this conversation. Here in just a few minutes, you'll hear from Jim, the Rookie, Morris. You're not going to want to miss this as we'll talk a plethora of topics. No matter what your roles are in life, I assure you there will be so much you're going to be able to pull away from this conversation that you are about to hear. However, before we dive into that, as I will typically do, there are a few news and notes from the sports world that I wanted to touch on. First, on Sunday, February 6th, the college basketball world received awful news as UTRGV head coach Lou Hill passed away. Coach Hill, who was in his 5th season guiding the UT Rio Grande Valley program, spent 1994 to 1998 as part of Joe Dooley's staff at East Carolina, which is where I became familiar with Coach Hill. He also spent several years on Melvin Watkins' staff at Texas A&M before spending well over a decade with Lon Kruger at UNLV and Oklahoma. At UTRGV, Hill took over a program that only won 11 games once in 7 seasons prior to his arrival. After winning 10 his first year, that program, the Vaqueros, won 15, 20, and 14 the last 3 seasons, and we're off to an 8-4 start in 2021. ECU basketball's official Twitter and social media accounts released a statement on Monday morning saying, "We are deeply saddened by the passing of our friend and former Pirate assistant coach, Lou Hill. We would like to extend our deepest condolences, thoughts, and prayers to his entire family." Following East Carolina's Monday night game against SMU, head coach Joe Dooley said that he had never seen Lou Hill have a bad day. He described him as a very pleasant and a very positive person, and he had a lot of friends that are really going to miss him, and that Coach Hill was just a great man. Those who followed East Carolina football back in the 1990s, especially the mid-90s, will remember tight end coach Willie Scott. Unfortunately, the former Steve Logan staffer and South Carolina Gamecocks great passed away at the age of 81. Scott, who was in need of a heart transplant, was drafted in the first round of the 1981 NFL Draft, along with teammate and Heisman winner George Rogers. Some more tragic news in the football world from the last few days. The NFL lost one of the all-time great coaches in Marty Schottenheimer. Coach Schottenheimer, unfortunately, never had the opportunity to play in a Super Bowl, coach in a Super Bowl. But Coach had been battling Alzheimer's for quite some time and was recently placed in hospice in Charlotte, North Carolina, before passing away on Monday, February 8th. In 21 seasons as a head coach, during which he spent time with the Browns, Chiefs, Redskins, and Chargers, Schottenheimer became one of the 7 NFL coaches in the league's history to win 200 games. Shifting to some more positive news, how about the Tampa Bay Bucks? While Tom Brady, not surprisingly, stole the headlines as he earned his 7th Super Bowl title, how about that Tampa Bay defense holding the potent Kansas City Chiefs attack led by Patrick Mahomes out of the end zone? The Chiefs had to settle for 3 field goals. The Bucks were able to pick off Mahomes twice and sack him 3 times as Tampa Bay won its 8th straight game to close out the 2020-2021 season and capture that organization's 2nd Super Bowl title. March Madness is just around the corner, and of course, folks love the underdog story and the Cinderellas. Of course, back in 2018, the Loyola Ramblers punched their ticket to the Final Four that season. And, the Ramblers are off to a 17-3 start this season and ranked 22nd in the nation. Might they have another run in them? And we'll see if Loyola can make a deep run into this year's NCAA tournament. What are some other potential underdogs out there? Some teams that have had excellent seasons to keep an eye on You may see these mentioned by Joe Lenardi and Joey Brackett, as he's known, as the big dance approaches over the next few weeks. Winthrop and Drake have had excellent years. I want to say Winthrop is 16 or 17-1, and Drake, the Bulldogs, won their first 18 games and were ranked 25th in the country before falling in their most recent outing. Some others to keep an eye on: Belmont, who we've seen noise from before in the NCAA tournament. I want to say they knocked off Duke several years ago, and also UAB or some others, or is another to have an excellent year, and someone to keep an eye on as tournament time approaches. Typically, we will have one episode per week, but with college baseball's opening day on February 19th, and we caught up with Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball on Wednesday afternoon, and we'll have that conversation for you on Friday the 12th, as we would be officially 1 week away from first pitch for Division I college baseball. Aaron and I talk about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on college baseball, and take a look at my East Carolina Pirates, the American Athletic Conference, the ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac 12, and more. So you're not going to want to miss that conversation again with Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball that will be debuting on Friday, February 12th. However, right now, without further ado, let's go to our conversation with Jim, the rookie Morris. I'm very excited to be joined by Jim, the rookie Morris. Jim, welcome in the program.
Thanks, Bubba. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on. Just right off the bat, let's talk about your childhood. I know you're a military kid. Your dad was in the Army, if I'm not mistaken, and so you moved around an awful lot, as is the case with military kids. So just talk about that, and moving around and living 12 different places by the time you were 12 years old.
Oh man, let's see. My dad was in the military. We north, south, east, west. He was a Navy guy in the submarines, and so with him it was very difficult because he wanted strict discipline with me, but he didn't abide by the discipline in the military, and so we moved a lot. And so by the time I was 15, I'd been to 30 different schools, and the one way I made friends was by playing baseball. In between the white lines, everything disappears except just playing the game. And so baseball for me, since the age of 5, has been something that helped me acclimate myself to whatever environment I found myself in. And I never had to say a word, which was good because my dad said children are to be seen and not heard. And so I didn't talk as a kid. My speaking came through playing sports, whether it was football, baseball, basketball, or track. Baseball ended up being my first and oldest love because I just love the game. And I love how it's a chess match and you're trying to figure out what the other team's going to do before they do it. And so you're setting up your guys, and it's still that way today. And it's been that way since it started. And for me, baseball helped me in every different environment we were in. And, the growing up with my dad was really rough because he was very verbally and physically abusive. And he was holding my little brother one time and he looked down at me and he goes, "This is the one we wanted. We never wanted you." And so sports for me was an escape. It helped me get out. And I think sports is that way for a lot of different kids growing up. And I'm just glad we have sports so we can escape to it.
Absolutely. Initially, like I mentioned before we started recording, I became aware of your story because of what transpired there in the late 90s and early 2000s with you making good and achieving your dream of pitching in the big leagues. But your story is so much more powerful, and the other things that have come to light since as a result of that platform you have. And just talk about there in your teen years when you moved to Texas, Brownwood, Texas, about 3 hours or so, kind of southwest of Dallas. So just talk about that and the impact that your grandparents had on you.
Yeah, when I was 15, after watching my parents for 15 years throw, hit, curse, and say things to each other you promised never to do, they did me the biggest favor they never knew they did for me. They moved me from their house in Florida to my grandparents' house in Brownwood. And immediately I thought, this is my father's parents, and he had to come from somewhere. They're going to be just like him. And I was completely wrong. When I walked into their house, I had two rules. If you do it, own it, live up to it, and move on. And number two, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said because the truth is a truth. It doesn't change. Well, unless you're in politics, and I guess it changes to whatever you want it to. But with my grandparents, the two best people I've ever known in my life, and they are the mentors and the dream makers in my life because they taught me how to not only be a good man, but a good human. And they did things for people that nobody ever even knew about. Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas presents for families that couldn't afford anything for their kids out of their own account, even though they weren't rich, they'd pay a bill for somebody so they could keep going a little bit longer. And the tutelage that they had me in was just incredible. And I went from a house where you blamed everybody else for your problems to a house where these problems are ours. And if we don't solve it, nobody will. So take care of yourself. And how to shake hands firmly, look people in the eye, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. I mean, my grandfather Ernest had me take my grandmother on lunch dates every week I was in high school so I would know how to treat women. And I just love the way that they worked with people. He had a menswear store in Brownwood, Texas, population 20,000. My grandmother, Alice, was our church secretary for over 30 years, and just great people to have lead you into the next step of your life. And if I had not had them at 15, I could have fallen off the rails very easily and gotten into trouble. But because of them, I'm here now and I'm talking to you even years after the movie. And that never would have happened had it not been for Alice and Ernest.
Yeah, I was not aware of that part of your story until I was preparing for this interview and doing my homework. But just you're talking about those valuable life lessons that were exemplified by your grandparents during those teen years. Just talk about baseball. You were talking about how growing up you had a ball in your hand at an early age and how much the game meant to you, how it was an outlet, considering you didn't really have a voice otherwise. So just talk about during those teen years as you were becoming more and more, I guess, dedicated and committed, I'm sure, as you progressed in your baseball career.
You know, one of the things I've always loved about baseball is that anybody can play it. And it doesn't matter how big, fast, or strong you are. If you find a group of kids who want to win and are willing to practice until they're fantastic at it, then you're going to have a great team. It doesn't matter what color you are or what language you speak. Baseball is baseball. And that's one of the things I've loved about baseball in the US. It has carried us through most of our democracy. And I just love looking back at the history and seeing how baseball has evolved and how anybody can play it. And for me, I was thankful for baseball because it taught me about discipline. It taught me about teamwork. It taught me how when somebody messes up, we're not going to concentrate on the mess up. We're going to concentrate on how to fix it. And so whether I'm playing or coaching, baseball to me is something we can always learn something every single day we're on the field because there is one aspect we can change every single time. And whether I'm throwing better, whether my footwork's better, whether my bat speed's better, or whether I get my kids in the right positions when they're on the field, whether I'm in the right position and I'm saying the things I need to say to build them up, baseball kind of coincides with life and the fact that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're not going to succeed. But if everybody pulls together as a team, and I that is one of the things that my grandparents taught me that I didn't realize until 35. When I was watching that group of kids at Big Lake win something that nobody thought they could win, including themselves, I realized what my grandparents had taught me in my teen years. It's not about me, it's about we. And we as a team, and me as an individual, and I can't shape the world very much like that, but as a team, we can change a lot. And so baseball to me has always been incredibly important and will continue to do so. When we moved to Brownwood, ironically enough, our football coach didn't like baseball, so we did not have a baseball team. So I played football. And he'd look at me and he goes, "You're never going to be a baseball player. You're a football player. You're going to go to college and play football in the NFL. That's your future, and that's what I've decided for you." Well, I had enough of my father in me to go, you know what? I'm playing baseball and there's nothing you can do about it. And so I would play summer league. I also played football, ran track, played basketball. but baseball has always been my first love. And I did every sport to the best of my ability. I could have probably gone several different ways, but baseball is what I chose because I like the way the game is formed and shaped and how every single individual on the field has to do their job to make the team work.
And what you alluded to right there, as far as you playing everything, playing what you named, I think, 4 sports there. I wholeheartedly agree with your thoughts as far as not specializing, and particularly at an early age. And we'll touch on that more here in just a moment. But before we do that, going back to life lessons being taught by the game of baseball, whether it's attention to detail or just one of the big ones you always hear baseball coaches preaching is the ability to handle failure.
Yeah, not everything's going to go right all the time, and nobody's trying to give up a home run, and nobody's trying to make an error, and nobody's trying to walk a guy when the bases are already loaded. We're all trying to do our best, and it's our job to lift people up, not to tear people down. And everybody makes mistakes. Nobody on this planet is perfect. And baseball is one of those sports in which we can improve every single day and get better at whatever position we play to help our team function more efficiently. And so, whether I was playing or whether I was coaching, and I made many errors while I was coaching, but I always tried to improve so that I could help my kids. And it's not just the people on the field that make up the team, it's the people on the bench, it's the coaches, the scorekeepers, it's the PA announcers, it's the parents who come to watch us. Baseball is very inclusive, and I've always loved that about that game. And it's just been very near and dear to me. If I would have played football, then the rookie doesn't come out and it doesn't happen. And because of my stubbornness and willingness to go out and fail and then come back at a later date and try it again because of a group of kids, that's a pretty cool story.
Now, being a former player myself, I played multiple sports, and whatever was in season, typically I was playing it. And then from a coaching standpoint as well, having coached, I guess about 15 years or so now, I'm wholeheartedly in agreement, with you as far as being anti-sport specialization. So just talk about your thoughts there, and letting kids be kids.
I think we have too many parents trying to live through their kids vicariously, and they're spending a fortune on whatever sport it is they're in. Everything is so specialized now that we're not allowing our kids to grow up. We're making them grow up immediately because you know what? You're going to get your college paid for. And then you're going to go to the pros and you're going to be a pro. And then you're going to be a millionaire. And the percentage of that happening is so small. We need more well rounded kids. And I think playing every sport is what we need to do because you know what? If you're good enough, people are going to find you. And we don't need to specialize in one thing because if you learn team chemistry in all these different sports, it helps you be a better baseball player. And that's just the bottom line. And I don't think going to 35 tournaments a year. I coached in 1999. I coached a group of kids down at Baseball America's World Bat Championships, and these kids, oh my God, I think they had already played 130 games, and you're in high school. And so by the time they got to me, these kids are tired and they're being watched at every single thing they do. And everything is a tournament situation. And if you mess up, you're done. And watching the pressure that these kids are under was incredible. What happened to having fun and playing a game? Now we have grown men playing a game and making an incredible amount of money. And are they worth that? No. But would they be silly not to take it? Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm all for letting kids be kids and playing every sport because if you're a good enough athlete, the scouts are going to find you. And playing every sport helps you adapt to every situation a little bit better and helps you become a better teammate.
You talk about the scouts finding you. Take us back to your high school years, and that decision. Do I go to college and play? Am I going to get drafted? What was it like for you?
The first time I got drafted was at not playing baseball in high school at all, and the Yankees drafted me, and I was stunned. I'm like, I play football. Why? How did that happen? But somebody had heard about me and they said, "You're a good outfielder. You can run really fast and you can hit. And so we're going to draft you, but you're left-handed. So we're going to make a pitcher out of you." Well, when I got drafted by the Yankees, my grandfather, Ernest, by this time was in a wheelchair and had ALS, and it was taking his life quickly. And so I wanted to stay close to home because I knew he wasn't going to last another 6 months. If I left, he would die while I was gone. And I wanted to be close to home. So I went to junior college for a semester. During that semester, he got even sicker and he ended up passing away my first semester in junior college. And I was glad I stayed home. And the Brewers drafted me in January of 1983, and everything was go from there. My father retired from the military and moved back to Brownwood. It was time for me to move on. And so I signed that contract with the Brewers, and they wanted me to be a pitcher too. And the whole time I'm pitching, I'm like, surely somebody will notice my speed and my ability to swing a bat, because every pitcher thinks they can hit. And they kept going, "You're tall, you're thin, you're left-handed, you're going to be a pitcher." All right. And so when they gave me $35,000 to chase my dream, I took the chance at it because I didn't want to be in the same town where my father was. And it was time for me to grow up. And when you get to your first spring training and you see 100 other guys there and you're like, "Hey, the whole organization's here. That's cool." And then you find out that is just the pitchers. It's a little shocking. And, you're 19 and all you've done is strike out everybody in your hometown and people close to you playing summer ball. And now all these kids have been in college or they've played professional ball for 2 or 3 years. And you're like, "I will move up to the big leagues quickly." And then you find out I'm not even close to being near minor league ball. And you've got to wake up and grow up. And, I got to coach some of the baseball kids in Chicago, top 17 years in the world at Under Armour. For like 3 years in Chicago, we'd bring the top 17-year-olds in the world and practice for a few days and then play a game at Wrigley Field. And these kids now are so used to being catered to at 15, 16, 17 years old that they're in a big league clubhouse and they're not even treating it with respect. And they may never and probably will never see that clubhouse again, but they've never been taught anything different. We're going to win, we're going to move on, we're going to be big leaguers, and that's just how it is. And then maybe one of those kids makes it. And so you've got to be willing and able to learn all your lessons and be willing to fail in order to get better. And if we don't allow kids to fail, then they're never going to improve and they're going to expect everything handed to them. That's what I expected in my first minor league camp. And when I got there, I found I am not even close to being grown up. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not even good enough to be here. And it's a wake up call after you've been catered to your whole life. And all of a sudden you're not good enough to be there. You got to get better. You got to move on.
So in that first professional opportunity, and just talk about, because much was made later on, of course, the velocity with which you pitched in the mid to upper 90s. So back then in the 80s, so where were you throwing? What were your what were the numbers on the gun?
Numbers on the gun were not what I thought they would be. I thought I would start increasing my velocity immediately because now I'm just concentrating on one sport. In the middle of my rookie season, I'm throwing 84, 85 miles an hour and having to rely on a curveball that wasn't even very good at that time. And, tops in the minors was 88, 89, sometimes 90. And I had good movement, but you're not throwing that hard. But you're left-handed, and so they'll throw you out there, even if you have to roll the ball up to the plate. 6 surgeries in 5.5 years. By 24, I'm out of baseball. I'm my own worst enemy. I think I'm grown up and I'm ready to move on. I think I know more than doctors do. Tommy John surgery, shoulder surgery. I want to do things my way. Dr. Job said, take a year off and just get stronger. And I would take 6 weeks off and start throwing again. And I was my own destructive force during that period of time. And I know my body better than these doctors do. They've only been to school for like 20 years. What do they know? And I'm going to do it my way, and that's how it's going to work. And I failed every single time. And so by 24, I'm in Dr. James Andrews' office in Birmingham. And he looks at me, he goes, I can fix you and put you back on the field, but the decision is yours. What do you want to do? And I said, you know what? It's time for me to grow up. If I can't play the game I love, maybe I can teach it. And so I went home, I went back to school, I got a degree, started teaching and coaching. And that's when I found a whole lot of kids who need people like you and I, coach. And we have a lot of kids without fathers. We have a lot of kids with broken families. And we become that family for that group of kids. And so I knew I did exactly the right thing because I grew up in a household where I could do nothing right until I got to my grandparents. And that's how these kids were. And a lot of these kids are broken. If you can teach them love through sport and getting better and pushing them without breaking them and learning how to communicate with these kids, there's no end to their development. And it may not be just for baseball. This may just be for life. And we're setting them up for success later on. We're not setting these kids up for failure. Baseball is do it right or go home. I saw a lot of guys with a whole lot of talent never ever make it because what was between their ears was not strong enough to take what went on the field. And then some of the guys I've seen on the field in the big leagues, they don't have the most talent, but in between their ears, they've got it down. If they mess up, they'll find out how to fix it and they'll work on that until they get it done. And so that's what I love about this game.
Before we talk more about that teaching and coaching experience, and just talk about your experience, you referenced going to school and getting your degree. I know you went to Angelo State, and you had the opportunity. You had played football in high school, and then you punted in college.
Yeah, I punted for 2 years, and I walked out one day, and the football coach, he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I watched your guy punt last year, and I want to punt for you." He goes, "But you haven't played football in years." And so I started punting for him, and then I did a few kickoffs, and all of a sudden he was like, "You're going to be our punter and kicker." And so for 2 years, I punted and kicked, All American, led the country, 5-3 hang time punting. All the scouts come through town, and they're like, "We love you, man. You can punt into the wind, you can punt with the wind sideways, you can punt with it at your back. You have a future, even though you're 28. We don't care because you can punt till you're 40. Who cares?" And but the draft came and went in '92, and I didn't get drafted, and I didn't know why until after the movie comes out, ironically. And then this guy shows up at a speech I did, and he goes, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No, sir. I've met a lot of people since the movie." He goes, "Well, I was your football agent when you were in college." I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "I came here to ask you one question." I said, "Ask me whatever you want." He said, "In '92, when the Steelers came through town and they wanted to draft you in a second round to punt and kick off for them, why did you not call back?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "They called and you were given 20 minutes to call back. And when you didn't call back, they figured you didn't want to play and they passed on you. And then they told everybody else you didn't want to play." And I look at that and I'm like, I didn't get that phone message. I don't want to talk about where I didn't get that phone message from, but I'm not married to that person anymore. And the story doesn't take place. The rookie doesn't happen. I'm not married to who I'm married to now. My kids don't grow up in a peaceful household if football takes place. It had to be baseball for the message to really resonate. And I was mad for about 30 seconds because I thought I could have played football and nobody ever even told me. And then I went, I wouldn't be where I am right now if that would have happened. And so I think everything happens for a reason. But I had a great time playing football. You know, it was during that time our team doctor would follow me around during the sideline because when you punt and kick, you're on the sideline most of the game. And he's writing a book about sports injuries. And Dr. Ryan would walk up and go, "Why'd you quit playing baseball? Why'd you quit chasing your dream? Why'd you walk away so young?" I said, "Because I've not thrown a baseball in 3 years. And if I roll over on my shoulder at night, I can't go back to sleep. That's how bad it hurts." And so after my second season, he talked me into having orthoscopic surgery. And he goes, "I'm going to go in, fix it up. You be good as new." Then he wakes me up during it and he goes, "You have a bone spur that is destroyed your rotator cuff and frayed your deltoid muscle so bad that I got to cut over 80% of it out. He said, you'll never pitch good again. I said, I don't care. I'm graduating. It's time to coach and teach. And I wake up with a 6-inch scar instead of a 1-inch scar with Dr. Ryan going, you will never, ever pitch again. It is physically impossible to happen. I said, I don't care. I'm done. I made my choice. This is what I'm doing. I'm coaching now. And so I never even gave it a second thought. And I started teaching and coaching. My teams were successful. My science classes, they excelled. And then I found myself at Reagan County High School in Big Lake, Texas, with a group of kids who were counted out from the beginning. And I thought, I am the perfect person for this job because I was counted out my whole life. And if everybody beat me down, I know what these kids have been through, and it's time to help these kids raise at a level. And so we had to learn everything from the ground up. And I would love to tell you, Coach, that I taught these kids everything about the history of baseball and what it's meant to our country. But these kids need to learn about respect, and they need to learn about teamwork. And so we had a whole different approach that first year. And we had to wear our uniforms. We had to learn how to wear those right. And so I said, we may not be good, but we're going to look good being bad. And we learned how to dress. We learned how to talk. We learned how to do our homework. We learned how to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am to teachers. And we learned to close our mouths, because this is the one instance where I got to teach all of the problems that I did wrong when I grew up. So now I'm using my own experience to help these kids further their lives, and hopefully they won't make these same mistakes. And so we didn't learn much about baseball. We learned about teamwork. And that's where my mistakes came in very handy to help these kids move on with their lives.
Anybody that's coached knows that it's about the process and, committing to the process. And like you're saying, not so much paying attention. Yes, have goals, but if you commit yourself to the process and you're doing the little things right, then those results are eventually going to take care of themselves. You're going to be the best you can be, whatever that is. And so just talk about, I know even things like field maintenance. You talked about how they dressed and how they treated their teachers. You also taught them attention to detail through field maintenance and taking care of what they had.
Yeah, we redid the whole field, infield, outfield, grass, dirt, trees, parking lot. On the third day of practice, I had a dad come out to me and go, my kid did not sign up for baseball to pick weeds. So after I talked to that dad on the fourth day, he was picking weeds with us. And then I got more dads, and then I had teachers get involved. And when you do the work yourself, you respect it a whole lot more than if somebody just hands it over to you. And so we learned all the little things, and it's the little things that you do right that add up to big things. And it's a step-by-step process, but you have to take care of everything and think of everything you possibly can in order to instill in these kids that, look, we're not going to be successful 100 times in a row. We're going to fail. You know what? Failure is okay, because that means we're getting out there and we're trying. It's when we quit and we don't act like we want to be there that we have a problem. If we want to be there and we're making mistakes, then we're teachable. We can learn. When you look at me like you could care less, I don't need you on my team. You're not helping us. You're not being a we person. You're being a me person. And so we learned how to be good teammates. We learned how to take care of our field. And these kids appreciated it because they had done the work themselves.
And there you were, doing everything you could to push those kids to be their best and to do the things that are required to achieve your potential. So talk about when your player or players challenged you when y'all were having I think it was a post-game chat as portrayed in the movie The Rookie. So talk about you deciding to accept their challenge.
Yeah, in 1999, I was on my way to baseball practice one day, and I had another coach stop me and tell me, you've taken these kids as far as you can. These kids are losers. Their parents are losers. He goes, you may be a great baseball coach, but you're always going to come in last to people like me because you're too nice. I know how to step on people. And I thought, wow, and they put you in charge of everybody. That's awesome. And two of my kids were around the corner where I couldn't see them. So in 90 seconds, this guy destroyed 2 years of work. So the first two games where the movie opens up, we lose 15-1 and 15-0. I send the kids down the left field line. I stood on home plate. And one of the things my grandparents did with me was they instilled faith with me. And so as a person of faith, I sent my kids down the left field line. I stood on home plate and I just said a prayer. What can I do to help these kids? How can I push them without breaking them? How can I get them to live up to potential and not down to what's expected? And the answer came to me very easily. Go down there and talk to them about your grandparents. And so I did. I walked down the left field line. Nobody's looking at me. Nobody's paying attention. I started talking about hopes and dreams and goals. And I said, if you guys want something, you've got to go out and get it. Nobody is going to give you anything in this life. It doesn't matter if you're on this field, if you're in the classroom, if you're going to get a job, nobody's going to hand you anything. You've got to work for every single thing you ever get. You've got to go out and live life. You can't let life live you. Don't let anybody dictate to you what you're going to do with yours. 20 minutes into this talk, the kids are engaged, they're smiling. In the back of my mind, I'm going, Ernest would be proud of this. The kids, yeah, they're into it. And that's when my catcher, Joel, my senior, he looked at me, he goes, what about your dreams? I said, my dream is to watch you guys be successful in the classroom, successful on the field, graduate from high school, go to college, see what's out there. And then you make up your own mind on where it is you want to be and what it is you want to do. He said, we know that and we love you too, but we think you still want to play. I said, no, I want to stay married. Thank you very much. I don't need my wife ripping off my bad arm and beating me with it. That's ridiculous. I am 35. I weigh 260 pounds. Your moms make fresh homemade tortillas for me every time I get on a bus to drive you guys anywhere. That is not a playing diet. That's a coaching diet. He said, but coach, the way you teach us how to play the game, we know what the other team is going to do before they do it. When you throw us batting practice, we can't hit it. And I said, that's because you can't hit. Well, why are you telling us to chase our dreams if you're not willing to do it yourself? And I said, you're 18, you need to shut up. And he started giggling. He goes, what if we start winning? You try it again. I said, I cannot do that. I had a surgery at 28 in which the doctor said, you'll never, ever pitch again. What if we win a district championship, coach? These kids have never been a part of a baseball championship. If we win a district championship, you try out. So for another 20 minutes, I argue with these kids about every reason I should never step back on a professional mound. And after 20 minutes, I did what every parent does, and I caved in. If you guys win, I'll find a tryout somewhere. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, this is going to be embarrassing, and you can't do anything about that because you're old and fat. Your wife's going to kill you. So I did not tell her. And that's where the bet was formed. When I pushed them, they pushed back, and we made each other better.
So give us the Cliff Notes version, of once you accepted the challenge, finding the tryout and then going through that tryout, having the wife and family, and then take it from there as far as getting the call.
We're down 3-1 going into the last inning for the district championship. And I watched this group of kids who didn't even believe in themselves score 6 runs, hold the other team to 0. We win 7-3. It's one of the best sights I've ever seen. They're hugging each other. They're hugging their parents. They're hugging the trophy. I'm in the bus because I'm the bus driver and I'm warming it up. And for the first time in my life, I realized all the lessons my grandparents had taught me. It's not about me, it's about we. And remember who you are. And that was big with my grandfather. Remember who you are. I heard that every single day. And it took me until I was 35 watching a group of kids who didn't even think they could win, let alone everybody else, win a championship to realize, remember who you are is pretty simple. Don't do anything you wouldn't have anybody see you do, because it's not what you do when you know people are watching that makes you who you are. It's what you do when nobody's watching you at all. That makes you who you are. And over the course of the 3 months since the bet, I watched this group of kids go from not even being able to touch the ball off me to hitting everything I pitched. And I couldn't get these high school kids out. And so by the time we get knocked out of the playoffs, we lose to a team where the kid couldn't even throw out of a wet paper bag because they were so far out in front They can't slow down. And I've got to find a tryout. And I can't even get high school kids out. This is going to be embarrassing. I'm 35. I'm fat. I can't get high school kids out, and I have to go to this tryout. I found one in my hometown of Brownwood at Howard Payne University. Tampa Bay Devil Rays, Doug Gasaway's a scout. I show up with my kids, 8, 4, and 1. Nobody would even play catch with me because you are as old as our parents. What are you doing out here? And I sign up. Gasaway, the scout, he's about 70. He goes, "You're going to throw last. These guys are here for serious business. They got to throw, they got to hit, they got to run. Do you want to run?" I said, "I don't run. I'm just here to embarrass myself and go home." So I watch everybody try out. After everybody tries out and they're putting all their stuff back in their cars, I come out to the mound. He hands me a ball. I pitch. And about midway through, he has asked this kid, "Go get a bat and get in the box." And that kid goes, "You want me to get in there against that?" And for the first time, I think that's when I went, "Oh, this is either really good or really bad." And I get done. And kid catching me, he's 19. He just graduated from high school a few weeks before. He runs up to me. He goes, "Sir," which hurt my feelings pretty bad. He goes, "You threw better than anybody today." I said, "Son, that's because nobody could throw." He goes, "No, you had them talking back there." I said, "I'm sure I did. Thank you." And I put my kids in the car. Gasaway, the scout, meets me in my car. He goes, "I remember you. Back at Ranger Junior College 15 years ago, you were a football star. Everybody wanted to make a picture out of." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Jimmy, back then you were tall and thin and you threw 87 or 88. I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Son, I don't know what you've done your time off aside from eat, but the first pitch you threw without warming up was 94. Everything after that went up to 98. Every person on this planet, if somebody comes up to you and goes, 'You're throwing 98, there is a happy dance going on in your head. As an educator, the first thing that ran through my mind is, "You've been throwing 98 at high school kids. Dude, you're getting sued is what you're getting." And he goes, "Look, they're going to think I'm crazy." He goes, "But I got to call it in." He goes, "You're left-handed. Your ball moves like crazy. You throw 98. He goes, "I don't know what has happened." He goes, "You didn't throw that hard back when you were supposed to be good. Don't be surprised if you get a phone call." So I get home an hour and a half later. It's 12 phone calls. They want me to come back in 2 days and throw again. If I do well, they want me to sign a contract. I call my high school kids. This is where talking the talk and walking the walk comes into play. I tell my kids, I said, "Look, if I go to this tryout and I do good, they want me to sign a contract." "Well, coach, you told us if we ever had our dream in front of us, you'd chase it no matter what." And I said, "Well, I was lying." And they started laughing. And so 2 days later, and rained so bad they had to have me a brand new baseball every pitch. My kids and now my high school kids are there to watch me pitch. 98 every pitch, sliding up to my knee in mud every time I landed. 2 days later, I'm in Florida at rehab camp getting ready for a professional career at the age of 35 in baseball, all because of a group of kids who were counted out. And when I pushed them, they pushed back and we made each other better. That's what a team is. You feed off each other and you make each other better.
So being 35 and out of the game for a decade, and talk about when you arrived in Florida and moving into that second opportunity at a professional career in baseball, what that was like, and some of the treatment you got from those current minor leaguers and or big leaguers.
I'm in rehab camp as soon as I get there, and I'm there to lose tortillas and Dr. Peppers, is what I'm there for. And to get acclimated into the game today. The first day I get there, I throw, and there are front office people there, and they're lighting up. And I get done, and I'm like, "Time to shower." And you're in Florida, it's like 9,000% humidity. I'm like, "Time to go clean up." And my trainer goes, "I don't think so. It's time to go run." I was like, "I didn't sign up to run." He goes, "You have to get in shape so you can pitch." I'm like, "Oh, dude." So I started running, and then I started doing mound drills and PFPs and all the fun stuff you have to do as a pitcher, covering bases. For 3 weeks, I did that. And then they sent me to meet the AA team on the road. My team, the Orlando Rays, is in Zebulon, North Carolina, playing the Mudcats. I walk into the clubhouse. I've got my bags with me. This kid looks at me. He goes, "Hey, we got a new coach." Great. I'm a coach. The first night I come in with the guy on first, and coach, you're going to love this part. Before I ever throw a professional pitch that counts, I balk the guy from first to second. And I'm sitting there giggling on the mound, and the manager comes out and he goes, "Why are you giggling?" I go, "Because my kids would be laughing so hard right now. I have embarrassed myself. This is the one thing I tell my kids: don't ever do that. We got to be calm and we got to breathe, and we're not going to balk people and give them free bases." And I just did it. So he laughed too, and he went back, and then I end up getting that guy out at second. I pick him off, and then I strike out a guy, 91, 92, and they're like, "Hey, he throws pretty good for an old dude." The second night in Double A, throw 2 innings, strike out 5 guys, throw 98 and 99 miles an hour. And I'm stunned. Everybody else is stunned. And we're on the bus, and I'm sitting there, and people would go, "What were some of the differences between those guys and you?" And I said, "Well, they were barely older than the kids I was coaching, so that was tough." And I said, and then they started asking me questions the second night, and they're like, "Are you married?" "Yep." "You have kids?" "Yep." "How come you throw so hard?" "I don't know." And I just like, then this guy asked his question. I'm like, "I do not even believe that you thought that." He goes, "So after each kid, did you start throwing harder?" And I'm like, "Why, yes, I did. And I'm going to have a couple more. Wait till then." And the next day I'm in AAA and I'm playing for the Durham Bulls. And for those 2 months, I'm throwing against guys who have either been to the big leagues or almost there, or guys trying to get back after an injury, and getting to see a lot of great ball. I'm 35. I'm getting a second chance at being a kid again. This is my summer. I've got a job at a high school when I get home in Fort Worth. It's a great big high school, head baseball coach, and I'm ready to go. But this summer, I'm getting to be a kid. And then we get down to the playoffs. And if we beat this team, Charlotte, the White Sox, if we win this game, we go to the AAA World Series. It's 2-1 when I come in. It's 2-1 when Bobby Munoz comes out. He's from Dallas. I'm from West Texas. We're going to ride home together. Season's over. We're not going to AAA World Series. And so we're at our lockers in Charlotte going, which direction are we going to take to go home? Because we're leaving right now. Our bags are in his pickup. And the manager comes up. He taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "I need to talk to you." And I looked around the locker room. I said, "I don't think so." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because the last 6 guys you talked to are all crying right now, and I choose not to cry." And he said, "Come on." And I walk into his office, and I've got my head down. I'm not sad. I'm not upset. I'm processing everything that has gone on. My kids and I make this bet. 3 months later, I try out. They win. 3 months later, here I am in AAA, which is a lot better than I was the first time around. And I'm cool with that. I got a second chance at a dream. And so I walk in to the manager's office, and our big league general manager's there. And he goes, "You can smile. You're going to be in Texas tomorrow." I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "I know that. Bobby and I are going there right now." He said, "No, the big league team is in Arlington playing the Rangers, and there's a uniform waiting on you." And I was stunned. I just, all the stuff I did and how good an athlete I was when I was young, and I failed every single time. And then when I was put in a position to help other people and I pushed them to be better, they pushed me to be better. And now I'm getting my dream at a time when most guys are retiring. And so that part was cool. The next day, you go to Arlington, walk into the clubhouse, the first person to come up to me, they've heard about the crazy science teacher for 3 months, is Wade Boggs. Automatic Hall of Famer, just got his 3,000th hit. Hugs me, he goes, "That is the best story I've ever heard." And I'm looking at him and I'm still a fan. I'm like, "You're Wade Boggs and you like chicken." And he starts giggling and he walks off. Roberto Hernandez, Fred McGriff, Jose Canseco. And they all treated me so nicely because they knew that I could do what I was there to do or I wouldn't be there. And I walk into a clubhouse with guys I've been watching on TV just a few weeks before, all because of that group of high school kids in West Texas. Pretty cool.
Not only do you fulfill your dream of pitching in the big leagues, but then I know it had to be ice on the cake to do it there at the ballpark at Arlington against the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, they're in first place, and there's 42,000 people there that first night. And I've thrown 3 days in a row in AAA. I'm like, there is no way they're putting me in. I've thrown 3 days in a row. And the eighth inning, they said warm up. I'm like, they just want me to warm up in a stadium full of people. That's cool. And I warm up. I'm like, hey, I can still throw a strike. It's the same distance it was in my high school field. And then they said, you're in. And that's when panic hit me a little bit. And people go, what was that moment like? When I opened the door from left field to go into the pitcher's mound, I saw all the colors and heard all the noise and the smells: leather, dirt, grass, popcorn, beer, baseball, the smell of baseball. And as I made my way to the mound, everything kind of closed in. And I've heard people talk about this my whole life. And they're like, I was so zoned in, I didn't hear anything. And by the time I got to the mound, I couldn't hear anything except my manager talking to me and my catcher, John, give me signals for signs. And it was the most surreal moment I've ever had in my life because everything just kind of closed in. And I came to a conclusion by the time I stepped my spikes onto the dirt, the mound of the ballpark in Arlington, I would not change one thing about my journey because that made me who I was. And now I've got a second chance because of a group of kids. That's pretty cool. So John gives me signs. He goes back. I warm up. Still the same distance. I'm pretty cool. Royce Clayton, all-star that year, he steps in. Goodwin's the runner at first base. Very fast guy. I get in a stretch. Gives me a sign for a fastball. I come set. I check on Goodwin. Throw it in. Strike one. He swings through it. Takes a second pitch for a strike. Now, the difference between the movie and real life, in real life, he fouls off the third pitch over the first base dugout and strikes out on the fourth pitch. On the movie set, we tried to get the actor to foul off the ball for 8 hours one day. And after 8 hours, the director looked at me and said, you know what? You struck him out in 3 pitches. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea what you're doing. That sounds good. But when he struck out, it was the whole day, being in my home state, being in my favorite ballpark, being there with my kids who I had not seen in 3 months, being there with my high school kids who also I haven't seen in 3 months. And Johnny Oates, the opposing manager, God bless him, let 150 people in the game that day that had ties to me. And so as I'm coming off the field, Flaherty, my catcher, he said, hey, coach, you may want this. He gives me the game ball, and I'm getting congratulated by everybody. After the game, the clubhouse kid from the Rangers comes over to me with this sanitary sock full of baseballs, and he goes, hey, these guys want your autograph. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, Pudge Rodriguez and all these guys. He starts naming. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I'm a teacher. And surreal moment, 30 dozen baseballs in front of my locker. And they weren't even for fans. They were for baseball people. It was just incredible.
So in the movie, you have a moment there. Dennis Quaid has a moment as he was portraying you with the father outside the locker room. Was that something that you were able to experience in the moment that day at the ballpark at Arlington?
I did. My father was there, and I gave him the game ball. Jose Canseco was standing right next to me. And, people have asked me this question in a multitude of different ways, wanting to know if there was a nanny moment, like, haha, I did it anyway. It wasn't that at all. It was just one of those moments where it felt right. And so I did it. And so they're like, so you get along with your dad? I'm like, no. And the pastor I had in Dallas, he goes, when you keep getting burned by these people, he goes, you don't have to count them out of your life. You just change their role in your life. You move them down the list some. He goes, go to your dad and talk to him and see if you guys can iron this out. And if you can't, you can't. And I went to my dad and talked about the verbal abuse and the physical abuse. He goes, "It was never as bad as you thought." And so while I gave him the game ball, yes, we never did patch our relationship. And, the last time I saw him when he was alive was not a pleasant moment. And he had basically, with a few adjectives, told me to never talk to him again. It was at my grandmother's funeral. And so I didn't. And some people come into our lives who just want to see destruction, whether it's themselves or whether they want to destroy what you're building. And I didn't need that in my life anymore. It was time for peace. It was time to move on. And the final piece, that 5-year-old wanting to be a baseball player and having to wait until he was 35 and getting to do it, it was done because it was the right thing to do. And I gave my dad the ball. Jose Canseco patted me on the shoulder. And it was a cool moment. And I'll tell you this, on the movie set, Brian Cox is playing my dad. This is how much I knew about movies at the time. I have no idea who this guy is. And so he gets done his last night on the set, and people give him a standing ovation. I'm like, who is this dude? And I go home, and he's like on every single movie I watch for the next 2 years. He's in all the Bourne movies and everything. I'm like, oh, that's who he is. Okay. And another cool moment, just getting to meet people like that.
So after that '99 season, you went on. You pitched 2,000, went to Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Then you signed with the LA Dodgers. Started having some arm issues, and talk about that. The decision to shut down the career and go home. I know you at the time you had a 10-year-old, and he said, "Dad, when are you going to be home?" That kind of thing.
Yeah, I was in Chavez Ravine practicing with these guys every day during the winter. And when it was time to go to spring training and they were still in Vero Beach, I drove through Texas to see my kids on the way. And when I'm in LA, I'm throwing 98, 99, 100. And I'm like, I'm ready to go, man. I've worked hard all winter. Dr. Job's given me clearance. It's good. And in those 5 days, something happened to where when I got to camp at Vero Beach and I'm throwing the ball to another pitcher because pitchers warm up together, I can't judge the ball coming back at me. In 5 days, something has happened and my balance is off and I can't judge it. And we're doing bunting drills because you're in the National League and you have to hit. And I can't even bunt the ball. I can't catch the ball with the bat. And this is what I've taught my entire life. And now I can't do it. What has happened in 5 days? And I got scared and I thought, if I'm throwing the ball up there 100 and somebody hits it back at me 120, it's probably going to hit me in the mouth and there's nothing I can do about it. That scares me to death. That combined with my son wanting his dad home made the decision easy. And I walked into Jim Tracy's office and I said, your organization is top notch. I love you guys. It's been fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity, but it's time for me to go home. And I just let the arm be a problem because that was my problem my whole life. Why tell people that my balance is off and I have issues judging anything? Go home, we film the movie. All of a sudden, I can't read my cell phone numbers. And then over the course of the next 20 years, I have over 50 surgeries and finally get diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and CTE induced Parkinsonism and turned into Parkinson's. Couldn't smell, couldn't taste, couldn't button my own buttons. I'm going to all my speeches. I'm not missing anything. But my wife, Shauna, has to start traveling with me because I can't even button my dress shirts and I can't tie my tie. And I was losing control of my body and I had no clue why. And then the doctor goes, it's because of all the concussions you suffered. And so they give me pills, carbidopa, to help with the Parkinson's, and they help, but they hurt my stomach. And so I can't tolerate them. Then I ended up having gastric bypass because pills killed my stomach and now it doesn't move. And so they put a deep brain stimulator in my brain. And when I woke up with the deep brain stimulator in the recovery room, I could smell and I could taste for the first time in years. And when they got me back to my room, I got up and I walked. and I didn't have to hold on to the wall while I was doing it. And I thought, cool, this works. So we have a whole deal where we have Parkinson's, and I get sicker. My girls are watching the video of me doing a speech one day, and they're like, Dad, you don't make facial expressions anymore and you don't move around. What's going on? My agent at the time started having people put chairs on stage for me in case I needed to sit so I could talk to people. And this is where sport comes in, I think, and helps people. It helps you learn not to be a quitter. And I thought, this is not going to beat me, and that's not going to happen. And so all the surgeries, I'm either getting ready for surgery, I'm having surgery, or I'm getting over surgery. So I'm on opiates the whole time. Those aren't working. I'm still in pain. I can't figure out why. And so I think, oh, I know more than doctors. I'll start drinking vodka too, and that'll help. And it helped me isolate myself. It helped me not go to church. It helped me do a lot of things that were negative. And then I had a doctor prescribe anti-anxiety medication on top of that. And I was mixing it in with my pain pills at the same time. And so the pain pills were every 4 hours. The anxiety medicine was for every 8, but I was taking them every 4. And so for the week of Christmas in 2016, I don't remember anything. My family, my kids, my wife's family coming in, I remember nothing. I wake up in Florida in a drug rehab. And again, because of all the ups and downs of sports, and you have to learn to overcome. For the first time in my life, I think this is where I got to concentrate on me. I wasn't coaching kids. I wasn't raising kids. I wasn't being a husband. I wasn't trying to do a job. My job was to get myself well. And I walk into my counselor's office at the rehab center, who was our pastor, loves baseball, has mementos from every major league team. And he looks at me, he goes, love the story, love the movie. Why are you here? And I said, because I lost my faith. He said, why? He said, don't you believe in Jesus? I said, absolutely. He goes, don't you believe he's with you? I said, all the time. He said, so let me get this right. You think he's with you, but he's like your co-pilot. And I said, absolutely, just like the bumper sticker. He goes, let me rephrase that. If he's in the car with you, why is he not driving? And something hit me, and it was like a light switch. And I went, huh. Go through rehab, get well. It's been over 4 years now. Don't touch alcohol, don't care about it. But after rehab, I got to a point to where my elderly mother, bought me a cane so I could walk. And my neurologist was going, this is just Parkinson's. It's just getting worse. There's nothing you can do about it. Happens to everybody. You're just going to get sicker. That's how it is. And because of my faith at my church, I've got this group of ladies at church, and I have to call them my girls. They're like from 50 to 90, and they pray for my wife and I all the time. And they don't want to be called women. They don't want to be called ma'am. They're my girls. And they've prayed with us through all the surgeries and through rehab and everything else. At rehab, I'm watching everybody else get sick and detox. I don't detox at all. I'm just well. And I'm like, how did that happen? And now they're praying for me again, because now I can't walk and I'm having to use a cane to walk around the block. Jump further along the story. It's a great story of faith. Let's just say this, Coach. I have no Parkinson's, and I'm running and lifting every day. And my neurologist, when she looked at me and did all the tests and they redid the nuclear scan of my dopamine, she goes, you don't have Parkinson's. And I said, I already knew that. I told you that. She goes, that doesn't happen. And I said, but I'm standing right here. She goes, yeah, but that's not possible. And I said, again, I'm right here. And go back to my neurosurgeon. He has me wait for a while to make sure everything's cool before he takes the brain implant out. I've already turned it off, not using it. And this past, 2020 sucked for a lot of people because of COVID and everything else that went on. But in July, I had my deep brain stimulator taken out. And, if I ever get to travel again, TSA is not going to get to stop me, because I've got metal in my body that they want to know if it's a bomb or not. So 2020 didn't suck too bad for me because that's when I got everything out. And now, for me, being healthy is incredible, and I'm not going to take it for granted.
Speaking of getting things out, the end of last June, June of 2020, you released a book, Dream Makers. Talk about when did the process begin to write the book? How long did it take? And touch on some of the highlights and promote your book.
Man, Dream Makers, 20 years it took. It never had an ending. And then God in his infinite wisdom gives me 2 endings. And so you got your rehab journey, and then you've got your getting well journey that everybody said you could not do that, but yet it happened. So it's a story of faith. It's a journey. It's about family. It's about love. It's about making mistakes and still being able to come out on the other side a better person. And it was very tough to write, because when you're writing about yourself making all these mistakes, you're like, wow, that is ridiculous. Why did you do that? What? When you put it down on paper, then you're helping other people. And the feedback we've gotten on the book has been incredible. And chapter 9 is a rehab story. Chapter 10 is a faith story. And they're both extremely powerful. And God gave those to me. After 20 years of not having an ending, I got 2. And I'm enjoying it being out there because I've gotten so much good feedback from everybody. But the story of faith and coming through that and getting better when all the medical people tell you can't. You'll never pitch again. I did. You'll never walk right again. I am. God can do anything. And so we need to not lose our faith. And he will bring us through whatever journey we're on.
Seeing this and hearing this, if they're listening to it in the audio form, I know they're going to be blown away on such a tremendous story in multiple ways. But we appreciate your time this afternoon, and really would love to maybe have you back on sometime down the road to talk other topics and talking the game of baseball.
Absolutely, Bub. I appreciate that. I'd love to do that.
That concludes this edition of the Bubba Rose Show. We appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you listen. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at Bubba Rosenbaum on Twitter, at Bubba Rose Show on Instagram. Like and follow the Bubba Rose Show on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us hear from you by emailing us at thebubbaroseshow@gmail.com. Again, that's thebubbaroseshow@gmail.com. We'll see you next time, y'all.